Hey everybody, welcome back. Hey, this is our marathon video stuff today. Alright, so this should be part 10b of creating scenery from Microsoft Flight Simulator using free resources, Quonset Hangar in Blender. Okay, anyway, so we continue. Last video, we just created the highest level of detail model, and that is the collection X00. Now, we don't need to do any more to this particular collection, but we need to make a new collection. And the new collection is going to be X01, which is the next lowest level of detail. Okay? So, with our model and our collection open, you might hit Shift A to open any relationship folders that are created in your project, just in case. All right. Now, we want to go to Scene Collection, right click, New Collection, and then I'm going to compress that folder again here, and I'm going to double click on this new collection that it created and call that X01. Okay, hit enter. So now we have two collections. Let's go back into X00 and hit A to select everything, and we're going to make a copy of it. So Shift D, but don't move it, just hit escape so you don't move it. And now everything has a copy with 001. Now the dot 001 doesn't have to be like that. I mean, you can rename all that stuff later if you wanted to, but why do it? Okay. So, like for instance, we have the air conditioning unit is in 00, and we want to take the air conditioner unit 001, okay, and move that to our new collection that we just created. But don't click off anything, because everything that's now selected is the copies, all right, and those are the ones that you want to move to the new collection. So hit M and choose X01. So all those new objects that we just copied are now in the second collection, that X01. So let's collapse these. So now you have two identical groups of objects. Zero at the moment, X01 is an exact duplicate of X00. Okay? Now, we're getting ready to edit X01. So it is a good idea to turn off 00 so you don't advertently select and delete models that are in that collection. Okay? So we got that. So now we can expand 01, and we have a listing of everything that's in there. Okay? And everything is currently selected, but you can unselect. All right, so here we are now working with the next lowest level of detail. Now, a couple numbers, some numbers you need to keep in mind. That is important for doing levels of detail. Give you some basic rules. The exact numbers can fluctuate here and there, but the basic rule is that the number of vertices, faces, triangles, objects, textures from one level to the next is to be reduced by about 50%. Okay, so let's look at now, since 01 is an exact duplicate, we can use these numbers right now off of it. Okay, but after we edit, we can't use these numbers anymore. We have to look at the original one in 00. But for now, we haven't done anything, so they're exactly the same. So if you come down here to the bottom corner, you are going to see the number of vertices, faces, tries or triangles or whatever, and the number of objects. Okay, if you want the number of textures, you actually have to go to the material properties and do you? Please hold. I'm going to click an object. There we go. Okay, click an object so you can see the material properties for that object. Okay, but if you do the pull down of the materials you've created for your original project, you'll get a listing of all the different materials and textures that you've created. All right, so you can count all those, get a number. I think I have something like 35 in this particular project, but not all of them need to be deleted because not all of them are PBR textures. Okay, we'll get to that later. So for this particular project, like I said, 01 at the moment is an exact duplicate of 00, so the numbers will be the same. We got 98,000 vertices, we got 104,000 faces, 176,000 tries, 182 objects, and like I said, roughly 35 textures. All right. Now, we need to reduce those numbers in 01 to 50%, around 50%. Okay, that's your target. Okay, 50% or less is really good. So for 01, I'm guessing right now, we don't have it in the sim to make our final final adjustment on when we want it to show up and all that, but I'm going to pretend that I'm going to make 00 the highest level. I want it to be showing up when that bounding sphere is 50% of the screen. Okay, so if I pretend, I'm thinking that this or this, is about 50%. Okay, that sphere is 50% of the screen. So when I'm this close to the hangar, I want it to show all of that detail, because you might be you might be taxiing to the hangar, and you want to see the helicopters in there. You want to see some of the framing that's in there. Okay, so you might want some high level of detail. Now, if you have like office furniture and stuff like that, you can go ahead and delete that stuff for this particular X01. Okay, but I don't have any of that stuff in the hangar yet because I don't know what it looks like yet. Somebody did send me an invitation to tour the place, so I will probably take them up on that and travel up to Cleveland and take some pictures. Okay, if they allow me to. Obviously, it's by permission only. But anyway, if I had office furniture and stuff, I probably wouldn't need that in this particular view. Okay, so now for 01, I might, so when I'm this far away from the hangar, I might want some better details, textures and stuff. But if I'm smaller than that, I may not really want to see the ceiling and the framing and the helicopters and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so that's the stuff we're thinking about for level 2 or X01. Okay, so we're going to for X01, we're not going to see a lot of detail. We're going to see some textures, but not everything. All right, so we concentrate on the objects themselves first. All right, so we need to get rid of some vertices and some faces and some objects. All right, now when I'm zoomed out, okay, you might be out here making your you might be in the pattern flying around the airport, maybe coming on approach to the airport. You don't need to see the helicopters and the internal frames of the hangar and stuff like that. So for X01, we are going to select some things and just simply delete them. All right. Now, the environmental occluders, these green ghost things, we don't need those when we're far out. Okay. So you can go to your list of objects and find your environmental occluders, which are going to be, should be all in alphabetical order. So I got the hangar and I got the office. All right. And I don't need those in X01 because we're not going to be inside the hangar and see it raining or snowing inside. It doesn't matter when you're that far away. So let's go ahead and delete those. Okay. And let's do a save. Okay. We also probably, you can make copies of the helicopters so you can kind of see that something's inside the building if you wanted to, and you can use a tool called decimate, and you can remove some of the geometry of the objects, okay, and you can still have them in there. Okay, so we might play with that a little bit and find out what it does to our counts. So here's an example. So let's say on level X01, which is what this video is about, let's take this helicopter. I'm going to hit P to focus in on it. Okay, I'm going to hit period on the number pad to focus in on it. And it is a 3D model that I got off of the internet. I can't take credit for making it, but it's a pretty good representation of a Bell 206. Okay, but if I go into edit mode, tab, you're going to see that it is relatively detailed. Okay, but when we're doing levels of detail, we don't want all that stuff because we're not going to see. We just want the basic shape of the helicopter, not all the detail, right? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to play around with a modifier and see what we can do to this helicopter to bring down these vertices and edges. If you notice that they're just for this object, okay, just for this object. Now I have some stuff selected, so I'm going to click off of it. All right. Just for this object, there are 14,000 vertices. Okay. We need to cut that in half, right? So what we're going to do is I'm going to tab out of edit mode, and I'm going to come over to the modifiers for that object. And I'm going to add a modifier, and I'm going to choose the decimate modifier. Okay, so right now the decimate modifier for this helicopter object is set at 1. That means don't do anything to it. But let's say I want to remove 50% of the geometry of that helicopter. Now, it may make it look really screwy, but we want to test it anyway. So with the modifier, change the 1.0 to 0.5 and then hit enter. Okay, you would have seen some subtleness going on. Okay, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this, and I'm going to I'm just going to Control Z and undo what I just did. Okay, now watch the helicopter really close while I change this to 0.5 again and hit enter. Watch, you'll see some subtle things going on. All right, so some of the shading kind of changed over in this area and over here, okay, because that modifier removed edges and vertices. It simplified, it generalized that model. Now, I'm going to undo it again, Control Z. You see it change back to the way it was. Let's go into edit mode. tab. So let's take a look. Now I'm in X-ray, so I'm going to turn that off so it's not so confusing. Now I want you to keep your eye on these vertices in this area here. Okay, we got a lot of triangles. Okay, the simulator hates triangles. All right, doesn't like to draw them. All right, so keep an eye on this area, and I'm going to come into the decimator and put my 0.5 back in. Now, it may not happen right away, but hit enter. You don't see any changes, right? Okay, when you're in edit mode, you don't see the changes right away like we did just a few seconds ago when we did the decimation. Okay, now if I get out of edit mode and come back in, it looks the same. All right, but if I apply it and then get out and then get back in, oh wait a minute, is that right? Oh wait a minute, hold on for a second, that did not apply it. Okay, I can't apply it when I'm in edit mode. That's why it didn't take. Okay, so here it is in edit mode. I got 50% decimation, if that's a word. All right, I'm going to get out of edit mode. I cannot apply the decimate in edit mode. So I'm going to apply it now. And now we're going to go back into edit mode. And notice we have less vertices and less edges, but yet it did as well as it could to maintain the shape of our object. So you can use the decimate tool to remove edges and faces. Okay? Now there's parts of this model that we can just clearly just delete, all right? Such as the seats. Okay? Let's turn on X-ray mode, turn on some polygons here, all right? So working with objects could be a little cumbersome, okay? Because you got all these faces, but we don't really need the interior of the helicopter, all right? So it depends on how you bring the model in, okay? I probably made my life a little harder doing it this way, okay? But you can get inside of here. Turn off that, and now see I'm selecting the faces that make up the pilot seat, right? Okay, and I can go in here and select these faces, but it's a lot of editing to do it this way, and I can hit delete faces, delete the faces, you know, hit another delete those faces. I can slowly start chopping away at this helicopter and deleting some of that internal stuff, right? Okay, so I'm only selecting internal stuff, and so that will take down your counts, right? Okay, so I'm gonna Control Z a few times and get out of that. Okay, so we're back to where we were before, but you can decimate again. All right. We just want the basic shape of the helicopter, all right? We don't really, it doesn't need to be perfectly, you know, keep the shape completely, because we're going to be seeing it from way back here, right? Okay, so let's go back in and let's get out of edit mode again. And with our helicopter still selected, let's add that decimate back up. Okay, and let's reduce that by another 0.5 and see what happens. Hit enter, and we can probably our helicopter hasn't really changed shape all that much, so the decimator's doing pretty good at this point. So let's change this to 0.25. All right, so now our helicopter's even worse. We can probably even go down even further. So let's make that 0.1 and see what happens. We just want the basic shape of the helicopter. All right. Now, it looks really bad the more you decimate it, right? But is that going to matter when you're way out here? Probably not, Okay, you just want to see the basic shape of maybe like the helicopter inside the building. Okay, you know, it's totally up to you on what you do, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and apply that and then go into edit mode and see what it has done. Now it's removed part of the fuselage and the nose of the fuselage there in the front. Okay, and it's generalized the shape of the fins. Okay, the blades are narrower, come to a point, but that's okay if you're seeing it from way back here, right? You're just getting an idea that there's something inside the hangar. Okay, so I may like that. So let's go ahead and apply that decimation, and let's go into edit mode and see what it's done. Okay, we've cut this helicopter down to 1,400 vertices. Remember, when we first started, it was 14,000. Okay, so for level X01, we can still have the helicopter. Okay, now we have another helicopter inside there. We have a second helicopter, but when you're way out here, does that second helicopter really show up that you really need to see it? Probably not. Okay, so here's where you make a decision is, since this helicopter is close to the door and you can see it better, I'll keep it. But this yellow helicopter back here, that's another 14,000 vertices. So let's just go ahead and delete it completely. All right, for this particular X01. Okay, so where are we on our counts now? So if I come up to the actual collection and click on it, we are now down. We started at 98,000 vertices. We are now at 70,000 vertices. Okay, so we need to get rid of some more vertices, right? So when you're way out here in the sim, you're not going to get, in order to see the ceiling and the frames inside and the lights that I have inside that hangar, you actually have to be below the ground, and you'll never get there when you're this far out, right? So that means that I can delete all of the framing and the lights and the ceiling from our model, right? Okay, so I'm going to find those. So I am going to select the roof so I can zoom into that area. All right, so we got the roof and we got some lights, hangar lights here, and there's 79 sets of those. All right, so what I'm going to do is I am going to Shift A to, whoops, I'm going to come over here to the table of contents and Shift A to open up all of those relationships. Okay, and I'm going to find all my lights, which all start with hangar lights, and I'll explain the external lights here in a bit. Okay, everything's in alphabetical order, so here we go. So I got to find out where my hangar lights start. There is hangar lights 040. So I think that's one. Yeah, that's right there. Okay. And I'm just going to scroll down to the bottom of my lights, where my lights are. I think it's at 79. There's 79, and then the next one is the roof. So I'm going to shift click that bottom fluorescent yellow. So you see on the screen it's selecting every one of those lights. Okay, and those lights are, I'll explain that real quick. The lights are made up of a can, basically a cube that I've shaped in the shape of a fluorescent light can, and then each light has 4 cylinders that I have a yellow emission texture to it, so that it looks like the fluorescent lights are on inside the building. Okay, and the tubes or the fluorescent lights are parented to the actual can itself. Okay, so that's why they're in this hierarchy here. All right, so here's the cylinder for each fluorescent tube, and then the cube is the actual can. So I selected all those objects and I simply delete them. And so now our count for vertices goes from 70,000 to 59,000. All right. Now we don't need the framing of the roof, so I can simply select part of that frame, delete it, select maybe this one right here, and this is going to remove quite a few vertices and faces because these were intensive. Okay. I'm going to hit pause, catch my breath. Okay, so we have the frame selected, and I'm just simply going to hit delete. Maybe. Try again. Delete. There. Our frame, our interior frame is gone. Now, where's our counts? Look down here. I'm going to hit Shift A in my table of contents to collapse that and select the collection. And now I am down to 43,101 vertices. Okay, and this is down from 98,000. So we are now, in terms of vertices, we're 50% of X00. You with me? See how this is working? But in this particular model, when we're seeing it way out here, we can get rid of some more stuff. Okay, so what I want to do is delete more stuff. So if I'm looking at this building from this far away, does it really matter that these doors are three-dimensional and I have a floor inside the building? You're not going to see it because now this is a glass material that I have on the hangar. This is a glass material. And so when it's in the sim, right now it's completely transparent, but when it's in the sim, there's kind of a glaze to it. So you won't actually be able to see through the windows from that distance, okay? You have to be really up close to the building to see it, okay? So for 001, I can probably select the floor and delete it. Don't need it. Those are extra polygons and vertices you don't need, okay? The window frames, okay? The window frames, that's a modifier that I have associated right here, a solidify modifier. We're just going to turn that off. Click X. So now they're two-dimensional, okay? So if you haven't applied a modifier in Blender, when you export the model to the sim, it's going to automatically apply any modifiers that if you tell it to. There's a checkbox that says apply modifiers, okay? But if you checkbox that and you have modifiers in your stack in your Blender, it will automatically apply those when you export it, okay? So since I turned that off, since I got rid of the modifier, there's nothing to apply, so it won't make that three-dimensional. So there won't be that many vertices, okay? You can do that same thing if you have a modifier on wall thickness, but I've already applied it because the reason I applied the modifiers because when I'm in the detailed version, there's a different material for the interior walls, okay? So I actually applied the modifier and then I separated the interior faces and called those interior walls. You with me? All right. So the object for X01 is to remove vertices and polygons that you will not see from this distance. Okay? So next I can go in and select our wall. Okay, here's our wall. And I can go into edit mode. and I can simply remove, do polygon select, and select the interior faces of all those polygons. Now this might be a case for not applying a modifier, okay, and allow the export to apply it, so you don't have to do all this stuff, okay. So that might be a case for that, but I had ulterior motives for doing it the first time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to the interior walls of this building, and I'm going to select the interior faces, okay. As soon as I get that all done, I'll come right back. Okay, so I have all those interior walls selected. Now these are different objects here, but I have all the interiors where they're brick, all right. And for level X01, we don't need those interior faces, so I'm just simply going to delete them. All right, now it's transparent, and the reason it's transparent is because I have applied a PBR texture. All right, and the PBR texture is on the face of the direction of the normals. Okay. Now, if I said double-sided in my material properties, you would have the brick texture on the outside. All right, but in this particular view, way back here, you can't really see that transparency anyway. Plus, we are eventually going to remove the brick texture, the PBR texture completely, and just simulate the color of the bricks, all right, from that view. So I selected the interior walls and deleted them from the brick. So I'm going to get out of tab and select the limestone and do the same thing on the interior. So as soon as I do that, I'll be right back. Actually, I discovered that this thickness of these walls is actually a modifier, so I don't have to select all the polygons. I can just simply turn the solidify modifier off. So now it's two-dimensional. Okay. This texture here that says welcome to Cleveland, if I'm zoomed out here, I can still kind of make it out. So I'm going to leave that texture alone. All right. But I need to find other other examples of 3D that aren't necessary for that view way out here, right? Okay, so I'm going to select this little part of this building here, hit period to zoom in on it, and go into edit mode, and that is a true 3D wall. So I can select the interior faces of this as well. So we'll select these, and I'm only doing the interior faces, okay? Select that, and that, and that, and that, and that. Just a couple more. So, and these edges, don't really need these edges, and I don't need the bottoms. Definitely, I didn't need the bottoms in 0, 0 either. Okay. I usually don't do the bottoms in the top of the walls because nobody ever sees them anyway. So anyway, I found some polygons I can get rid of. So I select those and I hit delete. Delete faces. So it's two-dimensional. Okay, there's no thickness to those walls. And from out here, you don't need to. The object, remember, is we're trying to cut down the number of vertices and faces. All right. We'll get to texturing next. Okay. So that's good enough for there. Get out of edit mode, file, save. Okay. What else can I get rid of from way back there? Okay, so there's way back here, there is, well, if you notice on the overhang of the roof, I have a texture that does all the rust spots, rust streaks, but when I'm way out here, I can't see them. Okay, so I can select that object And there's two objects. There's one for overhang that has the rib steel, and I have an overlay on top of that for just the rust. Okay, so here's the overhang rust, and if I click again, it's overhang all by itself. I want the one that says rust, so I'll click again, and there's overhang rust, and I can just delete that. Okay, so we removed not only an object, but we removed a PBR texture as well. Okay, so our building is still looking like a building from that distance. Okay, I'm going to pause here and I will get back to you. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Just had to stop, eat lunch. Okay, so now remember we're just removing unnecessary vertices and polygons. All right, now I could select the ceiling, which I'm trying to figure out where that is. Or did I already remove the ceiling? I think I might have already removed it, didn't I? Yeah, I already moved the ceiling, so we're good. All right, so what can we do more? So the distance that we're viewing at x01 is something like out here or something like that. Okay, so when we're about here, boom, it probably will go to x00. Okay, so out here, we can still see some of the internal organs, so to speak, of the building. But they don't have to be three-dimensional. So I am going to hit period, focus on this interior wall. And I know that these frames of the windows, there's the frames. All right. Now, it could be better to do this stuff, you know, with modifiers. Have your modifiers and not apply them. That way, all you need to do is turn off modifiers. So, in this particular case, I don't know. We could probably get away seeing this from way back here. You can't really see the window frames anyway. So you can probably just go ahead and get rid of the window frames. Just delete those. Now the glass, you know, there's glass now. There's a gap between the glass and the walls. But when you're way out here, that's not a big issue. But you just basically want maybe some dark squares inside that show that there might be some windows, but having the frame doesn't really matter. Okay, and same way with the door. The door's 3D as well. I applied the modifier to that, but you can easily fix that. You don't really need the door window, so let's go ahead and delete that. And let's go into the door and go into edit mode. And let's select all the polygons, and let's just do a delete and delete edges and faces. And then turn on vertice. Alright. And let's select these, hit period to focus in. So there's all those vertices for that three-dimensional door, right? So you don't need these vertices. Okay. Turn X-ray so I can see that one. Okay. And we don't need, well, actually we don't need any of the middle ones, and we don't need these, and we don't need the interior vertices. So I only have 4 vertices on the outside of my door. So I'm going to hit delete. Delete vertice. Then I'm going to select those 4 vertices that I have selected, hit hit F to create a face, and it should create a face that's the same color as the material that we had before. So we removed all those vertices, okay? And then I can tab out, and I can still have a polygon that looks like the door from a distance, but there's no three-dimensional detail to it. So we cut down the vertices and the edges and the number of faces and all that kind of stuff. Now for the glass that's on the inside, the detailed model, it's a transparent glass. But when you're way this far out, it doesn't need to be a transparent. You just want to see maybe some squares of showing where the windows are, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here, and here's the part where you deal with textures, is we are going to go down here to the materials, and it's using a material that I called glass new. Okay, we want to create a new material for the windows, okay? And what I could do is, for all intents and purposes, is I can just simply make it a dark, remove the glass texture and just make it a dark texture. So I can borrow the same one that I'm using for the door, which is bronze, even though the windows aren't bronze, right? And we can remove that texture and choose bronze. So from way out here, it just looks like, some dark windows on the inside. And I think that's going to be good enough. All right. Now for this brick texture that's on the wall, that's a white painted masonry block wall. All right. So we can't see the texture of the bricks from the blocks from this far out, right? But we still want some semblance, invent word here, okay? We want it to look like the wall, which is white. So what I'm going to do is, with that wall selected, is simply remove the CMU, cement masonry units, and see if we have a white texture somewhere. And I think we do. There we go. No, that's too shiny. Don't want that. I might have to create a new one. So I'm going to X that one. I'm going to go new, and let's just call this white LR for low res. Hit enter. And let's move the roughness up. The color is white. All right, so white is a terrible color. White is a terrible color in the sim because it shows up gray. It shows depending on the light. All right, so anyway, if you guys have a good way of using the color white in the sim, let me know. All right, but anyway, we got rid of the brick texture is basically what we did. Okay, now from that far out, are you going to be able to see the ribs of the steel on the door? Probably not. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to, now each one of these doors are separate. Actually, they're in pairs. So these two doors, door number 1, there's a right and left. 2, there's a right and left. 3, there's a right and left. 4, there's a right and left. Okay, so these doors are in pairs. But for level 001, what I'm going to do is, and those should be skins, okay? I called them skins. So I'm going to hit period on my, master door 4 skin. So this is door 1. This is door 4. All right, so I have 4 skins. So I got door 1 skin and door 4 skin. So door number 4 skin. Sorry about that. There are 4 doors, and each one of them has a steel-sided skin. So for X01, we are going to Control J and make those one object. Okay? Now, in the detailed version, I'm going to leave them separate because, you know, if I ever make a revision, I can slide the doors further open or, you know, individually, that kind of stuff. All right. But for X01, we're going to make all those one door, one object. Now, I want to get rid of the ribbed steel. This is white ribbed steel on the building. So we are going to come over and remove the new white siding texture from these doors. And we're going to go down and choose our white flat, our white LR that we created. All right? Because you want the same color, but you don't need the detail this far out. And probably the same with these. So I'm going to remove that PBR texture and make that white LR. Okay. Now, this wall back here, yep, that's a PBR. So we want to remove that PBR. So I'm going to delete that and then choose my white flat or white LR. Okay. So we're cutting down the number of PBR textures that are being called to draw, and that is called a draw call. And what really affects memory in the sim are the number of draw calls that are made. So if you have 10 individual textures, you have 10 draw calls. Okay, but if you combine all like color objects, they may be different textures, but like one might be a white block, one might be a white ribbed steel, one might be a white shiny, you know, type of metal or something like that. But if they're all white, you can change them to just a generic vertex color, such as what we're doing here with the low res white that I made. And each one is white, and that turns those 10 individual draw calls into one draw call because it's only accessing one texture. Does that make sense? Okay. You want to cut down the number of draw calls as well, and that's what we're doing by removing some of these textures and making them share the same texture. Okay. Now here we have this gray concrete poured wall, and so we want the gray, but we don't really need the PBR texture that gives us the concrete look, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the PBR texture from that. It's still in my project. It's just not, it's no longer associated with that object anymore. And I am going to, I believe I might have to make a new one. Yeah, I think I need to make a new one. There's gray painted steel, but that's shiny. We don't want it. So I'm going to make a new material, and I'm going to call this gray. You can spell it with an E or an A, it doesn't matter. Gray LR for low res. That way I know that it's being used for a low res level. Okay, so gray LR, and just go to the base color and then drop that down until it kind of matches what it was before. I think that's pretty close, maybe a little bit too light, but anyway, it's no longer a PBR texture. Okay? Now for the brick. Same thing. what we're going to do is select the office wall that has the brick, and this is a separate object so we can use it to judge our color. Alright, so what I'm going to do is select our office wall, and I'm going to remove the brick LR, and I'm going to create a new texture, and we're going to I remove the brick LT for light colored brick, and I'm going to create one that's called brick LR. Alright, hit enter, and I'm going to try to match the beige color of the bricks as well as I can. I may not get it perfect, but you got to remember the distance that you're seeing it from. So we're going to add a little bit of the yellow in there, kind of like that. And we can probably, I am not a color person, okay? So you graphics artists that do this kind of stuff, you're probably going to laugh at me and all this kind of stuff. But, sorry. You can get color ramps, look at color ramps, and get their hex code, you know, and make your colors better. But sometimes I don't do that. So I'm going to darken that up just a bit, just so I kind of feel like it's the same shading. It may be a little darker, but that's okay. So we just converted those bricks into a simple vertex color, a raw color. It's no longer a PBR texture. Okay? And if you notice, since we took the PBR texture off of that object, there's no more transparency of our wall. Okay? Sorry about that. All right, so we took care of our brick. So from way far out, it still kind of has the same color, but it doesn't have the PBR texture. So we just lighten the load of draw calls. So we pick this wall that still has the brick, and we remove the PBR, and then we choose our brick LR. Alright, so we took care of that. Now we need to do our limestone slabs above our windows. Same process. So we're going to remove the PBR, and we are going to choose, I think we could probably get away with using that gray LR. Maybe not. We can come over here to the actual color, and let's orphan that. Right now, this number beside says there's two objects using this particular material. Okay? Now, I want the base of this material, I want a copy of it. So we're going to orphan it. We're going to make it its own copy. So I'm going to click the number 2, and now we get a copy of that texture. Now I am going to give it a new name, and we'll call it, we'll add an LT for light gray. Hit enter. And then come down to our base color, and let's just lighten that up a little bit so it kind of matches the tone or so of the limestone that was there before. Okay, so from this far out, we can still see that we have a color to our wall, and we can see the limestone slabs that are between the windows, or over the windows and under the windows. Okay, let's do a save. Haven't done that for a while. All right, now what else? What other changes can we make? I am going to, at this scale, I'm going to leave the PBR for the roof material, because you can still kind of tell that from that distance that it's a steel roof. Okay, and there's some mottledness to this office roof. All right, so I'm going to keep that. Now this little annex here has concrete block, but We don't need that, so let's get rid of that PBR and choose our white LR that we had before. So we just decreased another draw call just by doing that. Okay, now it's showing up gray. Like I said, white is a horrible color to use. All right. The next object that we want to change is this awning. If we zoom into the awning, you can see that I'm using a fabric texture. But when you're way out here, you can't tell it's a fabric. So we're just going to make that a forest green native color. All right, so let's remove that by hitting the X, and let's add a new material, and let's call that just forest green, just like that. Hit enter and come down and go to our color wheel, and let's make a forest green. Darken that up a little bit. That might be too dark. We want it completely flat. No, maybe not. Maybe not. That'll be fine. So that looks like what it did before, right? I hope. Let's do a save. Okay. And pretty soon we're going to get done with X01 and check our numbers, and that will determine where we go from here. All right, now let me talk about lights real quick. Notice that I still have the lights from X00 in X01. It is a good idea, if you have external lights, is to keep them in every single layer. The reason is if the lowest detail, the furthest away from the model, if I deleted the lights, it would be dark, obviously. There wouldn't be any lights on. Then as you got closer, flew closer to the building, all of a sudden, boom, the lights would come on because the lights were in the next level, okay? So it's a good idea to keep your external lights in every level so you don't get that flash of light turning on as you get closer to your object, or you get further away and all of a sudden they go off, all right? So keep your external lights. Your internal lights, you can start turning those off the further that you get away, okay? Because internal lights you don't see as well. So we keep the lights. Now, this signature sign that's on the side of the building, that is a lighted sign. That it's lit at night. And at this far, we might want to still see kind of a glow of that light. All right. So I am going to keep the signature sign at that level. However, on the other side of the hangar, there is an unlit signature sign. Okay. This is just a texture that says signature flight support. All right. And what we're going to do is simply, if I have the right one, yeah, it's using the signature sign white PNG file. That far out, we can just simply delete it and just get the gray box that the letters are on, because you're not going to be able to read the letters from that far anyway, right? Okay, so we remove that. Let's do another save. What else can we do to our model at this scale? All right. Notice these windows. Okay. Oh, that's what we can do. At this scale, I can still kind of see the individual panes of these hangar windows. They're actually fiberglass panels, okay, translucent. I can still kind of see them. So I might want that detail to stay there for that. All right. Now, in order for me to make that decision, I need to find out where I am with my polygon counts for X01 compared to X00. So with I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. So come up and click on the X01 and get your final numbers down here. So remember, 50%. We started with 98,000. We now have 42,000. Faces, we started with 104. We now have 30,000. Number of tries, well, just we removed some out of the helicopter, so we reduced that. The tries aren't that big of a deal right now, but we'll see how it performs in the sim, okay? And if it still performs poorly, then we'll go ahead and delete some more. Number of objects, we went from 182 to 88, so that's good. And we have reduced using PBR textures dramatically. I think for PBR textures now, we only have two. We have the one for the steel roof and one for the office roof. That's the only PBR textures that we have. Now, I forgot to do this wall. So this is a brick wall. So what we'll do is quickly come into here and remove brick LT and replace that with brick LR, and the same one with that one. Okay, there we go. All right, so we have dramatically decreased our model in terms of draw calls to the textures. We've also dramatically reduced the number of vertices and faces, and we are below the 50% threshold that we were looking for. So we can pretty much call this level done. All right, now the next video we're going to do the next level, X02. Okay, that's even further out. That's like out here. All right, and so we're going to reduce our model even further for X02. All right, so let's do a save, and I'll explain these windows when we get to X02, which is the next video, because that's going to be important, because that's the helicopter, and this window is the bulk of the vertices and faces in the model going to X02. All right. If you guys have any questions of so far of what we've done, go ahead and put them in the comments. I will stop recording part Pt10b, which is this one, and immediately start recording 10C, which is detail level 3, X02. Okay? Hey, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Buymeacoffee.com, My Physical World, if you incline. I hope you guys have a great day, and we will see you in the next part of this. See ya.